Welcome, everyone. My name is Richard Andrew, founder of Learn, Implement, Share, and it's with great pleasure that I have with me today Daun Yorke. Daun is the head of Hanoi International School. She's a professional development lead educator at the IB, International Baccalaureate, and has held multiple other roles in schools across the globe. At Hanoi International School, Daun has been fostering an environment where staff development and instructional design thrive. Daun's expertise in creating sustainable education ecosystems positions her team at the forefront of progressive education management. As a professional development lead educator at the International Baccalaureate for nearly a decade, Daun has honed her skills in educational leadership, ensuring that each initiative contributes significantly to their global mission. So, Daun, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you on.
Thank you for the lovely introduction.
Well, most of it was on your About page, so you know.
Well,
Well, I
thank you.
thought not all About pages are worth quoting, but I thought that one was great. Yeah. So look, we've Dawn and I have chatted a few times on Zoom and a fair bit on LinkedIn, so we're quite aligned. And in one of our chats, we started talking about professional development and the whole, what works, what doesn't. And I said to Dawn, we should record a conversation sometime. So that's what this one is. I'm going to try and say as little as I can and let Dawn hold the floor, but it is a little bit difficult for me to do that because this is also something that I'm very passionate about. So Dawn, what makes PD, professional development, professional learning, what makes it your jam? What gets you the most fired up about professional learning?
Wow. Well, I guess it has to start with I guess I'm a nerd, really. I love learning. It's ongoing. I love professional development. We are in the field of education and educating students. So for us, learning is lifelong. And I think we've got to model that lifelong learning, model that love of learning. And I've been really fortunate to be in schools where professional development has been supported at all levels, and we've been able to do some really powerful stuff. And yeah, getting people excited about what they're doing in the classroom. I think professional learning, professional development, whatever you want to call it, I think it really helps people to grow and stay excited about what they're doing.
So Dawn and I have a few agreed questions, but I'm going to keep going off script here. As
Okay.
you're talking, I was wondering, I wonder what Dawn's early experience was as a teacher in regard to developing yourself. Like, so when you started teaching, the first few years, what was that journey like? Other than, there's probably a level of survival in there, but what was that like? And was there something that happened in those early years that made you very interested in this professional development area?
That is a wonderful question. And thinking about my first year of teaching, there's something in there. I had lived in Japan for a couple years, but my degree was in visual arts. I'm a visual arts
Oh,
teacher.
right.
And when I graduated from university, there was not a lot of jobs. A very few of us graduating in the visual arts area got jobs. I was one.
This
And
is in Canada.
this is in Canada, and I'd applied all over. And I had one very innovative head of school contact me and say, see your CV here. I see you can teach art, but I see you've been to Japan and you've learned Japanese. Can you teach Japanese? Me being very young and very just believing in the power of the universe, I guess, I said, sure, I can do that. And I ended up teaching an 85% load without real mentorship. I would say I taught EAL, which I'd done in Japan, so that wasn't a massive stretch, and I loved teaching it. But EAL, English, English literature. This is at a junior high, grades. What was it then? Grades 7 to 10. It's like 7, 8. Yeah, 7 to 10, I guess. 7 to 10. That's right. No, 8 to 10. 8 to 10. Japanese and visual arts. So I taught it 4 subjects. I was a brand new teacher, And there was not a lot of professional development in the public school system in Canada, I have to say. I had one amazing mentor, and she was the librarian, who was a Japanese teacher, who was very delighted to give the load to me because she wanted to be full-time in the library. So I will not forget her and her support that she offered me. But as far as PD in those early days, not a lot. PD started for me 10 years later, when no, maybe 8 years later, when I worked at the university as a faculty associate. That was powerful PD and got me really excited. And then after that, when I was moving overseas, before I even went overseas, I was sent to California to do professional development for the IB. And that got me so excited. And there was really, in those first years I was in Shanghai, my first post, there was a lot of opportunities for PD, and that I really got hooked, and I really understood probably what I had needed as a young teacher who didn't really have that mentorship, who was overloaded with different subjects. No regrets. I loved it. I love the kids. I will never forget them. But yeah, so I guess you're asking a really interesting question, and I don't think I've made that connection before. So thank you for that.
Were
But it
you
was missing in my early career.
so as a as an unsupported, well, you had the mentor, but like, relatively unsupported early career teacher, in reflection, do you think you had some kind of vision that you couldn't put your finger on, but that you were chasing something? Were you chasing something? Did you have experiences where you knew that what you're doing wasn't working and there's got to be a better way, and were you looking for something, or like?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, like you're always learning and Japanese. I was teaching beginners Japanese, grade 9 and 10 Japanese, and it was basic, but man, I am not fluent in Japanese. I wasn't fluent. I lived in Japan for a few years. I studied at the university. I was decent, but it was like, keeping on top of it and studying every night for me, and creating games and creating activities to enhance the language learning. So your question, was I chasing something? Was I
So
um
those activities you were designing, were they
yeah,
coming from your head, or were they something that you'd read in a book and you went, "Oh, okay, I should replicate that," or a bit of both?
both. I think it was being an art person, art teacher. I was pretty creative, and it was things that I'd experienced probably studying French when I was in school myself, and then studying Japanese. Although studying Japanese as an adult, it was pretty dry. So I think, yeah, just adaptation and creativity, and probably for Japanese, that mentor who I'd had in the library, who I met with regularly and talked about, how do I do this? And talk about imposter syndrome. My biggest fear was having a Japanese native native in my class. It wasn't for Japanese natives teachers. It was really students. It was really basic, but man, I was really, that was some of my best teaching, probably, because I was working so hard to be ahead of the kids. I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, I'm just interested because I do think, from my experience as a teacher, observing other teachers, and then as a leader, I think and this is not, let's not just talk teachers, I think humans, period. There are some people who are just naturally hungry to improve their craft, whatever that craft is. And there's others, for whatever reason, and I'm trying not to be judgmental here, who kind of are happy enough with the status quo that they've found, and and that's okay. And I just wonder whether that's because you are clearly in the first category, and that's obvious. Yeah. So I don't know what you think about that, but
yeah, no, I think there's always that thirst for knowledge and wanting. I think my mom was an elementary school teacher, and she was constantly making things. She was weaving rugs for the classroom and making dolls and making puppets. And I remember as a young person going, I'm never going to be a teacher. Like I watched her working beyond into the evenings, and she was always making something for school. Maybe as kids, my brothers and I were even a little bit jealous. She worked in the inner city and she worked with really high needs kids. Loved it, loved going to her classroom. But it exhausted me. And I thought, no, this is not my jam. This is not what I'm going to do. And then going to Japan and teaching, um, I fell in love with teaching, and I was teaching a range. I was teaching adults, and I loved that. And I loved figuring out how to get adults engaged and excited. And I think that's that whole andragogy piece. And I knew that I loved teaching adults. And then working in the high school was phenomenal, and middle school as well. So that's
Mm.
that's kind of
Some of
mentor
those
that.
questions came from, like I now realize that in my early days, I was developing in a way myself, and again, I was unsupported. Um, but I didn't really know, I couldn't explain what I was doing, but I was very intuitive. But in down the track, when I knew a lot more, it's like, oh, that's what I was chasing. But I didn't know that at the time. I just wondered whether there was sort of a parallel there.
I think so. I think there's that need to improve and just
Mm.
get better and hone in
Yeah.
on the craft. And maybe we like that challenge of not having that as much guidance and mentorship. And it's like, okay, I'm going to figure this out and I'm just going to
Yeah.
improve and better,
Yeah.
right? There's Yeah, and I guess the important part is it's students at the center, right? And why do we do what we do? And why do we care so much and want to put those extra hours in? Because we love kids and we want to do what's right for them.
See,
So
I wish someone had just tapped me on the shoulder in the early days and say, "Hey, Richard, it's all about learning. It's not about teaching. It's about learning." Because it took me so long to realize that. And even when I realized it, I still didn't really have that language. It was afterwards where I went, oh, okay, that's why student-centric learning is so powerful. Oh, it's about active learning. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. So no wonder I had blank looks on their faces in my early years. Anyway. So what are your biggest soapboxes when it comes to professional learning? What do you think, like what gets you fired up? Because you are clearly passionate about professional development. And so you're kind of like
yeah,
a, I don't know if it's the right term, but you're kind of like a trainer with IB. Is that correct?
I do. I train workshop leaders and site visit members,
Yeah,
and I
right.
run workshops as well and go
Right.
on kids. So
So
yeah,
when you're in full flight, or when you're planning, but when you're in full flight, what is it that you're really like? What are the dynamics that you're using that work and that you're passionate about?
yeah. I mean, I think going back to the what's my biggest soapbox, it's just the importance of it and how it's for everyone. Recently this year my professional goal was to really support our local teachers with professional learning, professional development. It's no secret that in international schools the expat teachers, the teaching staff often have a lot of benefits and get a benefit from incredible professional learning where the local staff don't necessarily. So we've done a lot of in-school professional development that is for everyone. And this year I set up a series of professional learning events for our local staff, our teachers' assistants, TAs. And that's been really powerful. And I've been able to attend those. I've run one of the sessions. I asked them, and I think agency and finding out what they want, what they need to start is super important. So checking in with those TAs and saying, what do you want to learn? Who do you want? It's not me deciding, oh, let's learn about language acquisition. What do you want? And we had a little town hall meeting. We sat together, a little circle, and they said, right off the bat, a number of the TAs said, we want to learn more about supporting our students with different learning needs. And we're an inclusive school. So we have kids on the spectrum, we have kids with dyslexia, we have kids with ADHD, every kind of learning, different learning challenge. And so they said, we want this. And I was able to tap in and find a specialist in the city on neurodiversity who did a session with the teacher TAs, and and also a couple who specialize in ADHD. So that was really fantastic. And within the school, a couple of our specialist expert teachers on dyslexia. And then the other area they were interested in was, what if I have to take over the class? What activities and what engagements? And so as a workshop leader going out and leading workshops all over Asia Pacific, I have a lot of tricks in my bag. And so I did a session with a whole afternoon session with the TAs on strategies and learning engagements and making learning fun. And yeah, so that's kind of my soapbox. Is it's not just for teachers. TAs need that training as well. And ideally it is not just one-offs, and you have a plan and you listen to the voices of the teachers, of the TAs. What is it you need? That's a really good starting point.
So I have a hunch that that's a big one of your big soapboxes, the agency word. You slipped it in early there and it was on the page. We're going to get to that, but we're there now. And look, for someone like you, it's so obvious, right? But it's not obvious everywhere, this teacher agency, because there's a lot of micromanagement that can go on in certain schools. And I think where there's micromanagement, there ain't much teacher agency, right? So those two are operating in, there's the Venn diagram and there's no intersections between those two, right? They're sort of opposites. Like if we go to basic terms, why is it that agency is so important for teachers in the professional development arena?
Yeah, I mean, in IB schools, we talk all the time about empowering students and student agency, and it's really central to what we do.
So let's pretend we're talking to non-IB people who
okay.
who
So
don't
I think
have. I swear now I realise that I've been on about agency for decades. I only found that out late in my career, and I'd never heard the word used up until that time in about 20 odd years of teaching. Right. So late came late to the party, but I realized, that's what was driving me. And for a long time I thought it was engagement. And I was having a chat. He was in the car actually. I haven't met him, but Peter Hutton from Victoria, a really innovative leader and whatever. And I was enthusiastic about this agency thing, and about engagement. And he stopped me and says, actually, Richard, what you're talking about is agency. It's not engagement. It's agency. And that was a massive light bulb moment that unraveled over time. From then on, it's like, right, okay, now I think I know what I'm on about. So let's imagine we're talking to people who aren't that familiar with the terms.
Agency. Okay, so consider it. I think teachers would agree that it's important, and maybe not. Maybe it's not universal, to be fair, but in a lot of contemporary teaching practice, there's kind of an understanding that when we give students voice, choice, empower them to be, I don't want to use the word agency, but empower them to make decisions and to be it's a student-centered approach, right? Where the student's voice is really important. So we talk about that a lot. And my belief is we cannot have that without teacher agency, right? If we consider a school an ecosystem, right? That means that we need, if you can consider it like an ecosystem, if you've got students who are it's agentic learning for students, it's got to be there for teachers and all members of the community, right? We've got to support teachers to have agency. We can't sit and say, student agency is important and you need to allow this in your classes. Teachers need to have autonomy. They need, when it comes to professional learning and professional growth, they need to like decide at the beginning of the year or maybe throughout the year, this is something in my practice I need to work on. This needs to be the focus for my teacher observation or appraisal. This needs to be the focus for my professional learning in this year. And I need feedback from peers and from leaders about this. So yeah, I think there's a real parallel and an interconnection between student agency and teacher agency. And it really, when it comes to professional learning, you've got to want it. We can run sessions. We can have a 2-day session on something that's irrelevant to the teachers or has just a little bit of relevance and not connected to what they're doing in the classroom. It's not that helpful. So if we connect that and we check in with what teachers need, look at various things, look at evidence of that, and listen to their voices, then I think that's where powerful professional development, professional learning starts.
This is a soapbox of mine because it's so obvious to me now that this is the root of all engagement. The difference between me as a person in some kind of role where I don't have any control, like I'm told, got to do this, do A, then do B, then jump C, go to D, then you go to L and M and P, and you got to do it by 3:15 and blah, blah. It's just like, and by the way, we've got this new approach that, Mr. Joe Bloggs has just decided is a really good idea and it's all research backed. So now you're going to have to do that. And the whole line is doing the same thing. So you can't deviate, it's crushing. I mean, you need to be under the same vision of the organization, but when you're empowered to be a professional and to make choices and decide what your strengths are and what you want to work on, and it's chalk and cheese. But I honestly think that a lot of people don't, outside of IB, don't realize the dynamic of how that works and how powerful it is.
I agree with you. I really do. And I think when teachers feel like professional learning is being done to them and they don't have a voice and they don't have a choice of what they're learning, it can be really problematic. And we can, in international schools, I'm sure in other schools as well, you can run into initiative fatigue, where the management, the head of school, the leadership team has decided, we're doing this now, we're doing this now, we're doing this PD this time. I've been guilty of it myself. I'll own that. And I think something we did recently in this school, our school student services team, and especially the leader of that team was really keen on, and I was really excited. There were a group of us excited about universal design for learning, which is a framework for differentiation. But what we decided, and then we've been talking about this for like a year or two, and what we decided to do, instead of saying, okay, we're going to do a 2-day PD in the fall on UDL, everybody jump on, here's a new acronym, here's a new idea for you. How we decided to do that was to have a team driving it, and have this little team, driving team, read articles, meet, talk about it. And then we brought in an incredible woman, Beth Stark, who does universal design for learning. She's out of Germany. And we brought her in and we had a weekend workshop, which was optional for teachers. And we had people coming from all over the region to join us. Those folks who were interested joined that PD. We had another day with Beth where we worked as a team, brainstorming and talking about how to drive this initiative forward.
So just pause, don't forget your thread. So you're running a weekend workshop where you're taking volunteers from the school. So not all teachers are in.
The early adopters. Yeah, the ones who want.
And you're fine with that. You're just happy to work with the early adopters.
100%. Now this was it's called an Ear Coast weekend workshop, and we're able to do this. And it's kind of it's a really unique thing where we can do one of these workshops every year. We get some funding from outside. It's kind of a really beautiful.
What percentage of your teachers
Oh,
Observation.
man. Yeah, so we probably had about 45, 50 participants from literally we had someone from Saudi, we had people come from India, we had people come from all over because this is a
Okay,
consultant who's
right.
really renowned in the field. And then we probably had 15 or 20 of our teachers who chose to be there,
Right.
who were interested, who wanted to know more.
Right.
And then within, there were probably 12 of us who wanted to be in this brainstorming group to drive the initiative.
And
And
I'm probably jumping ahead, but I'm imagining where the story might go. Did the fact that you had maybe 10% of your staff that were like full on into this, did that then have ripple effects over the rest of the staff over time?
yes, well, the plan is a multi-year plan. So yes, ripples. There's people who've already started incorporating aspects and using the UDL framework in their work at
Yep.
different, you know, different stages, different levels. But the idea now is that group of teachers and curriculum leaders and leaders now drive that initiative into the future at the school. So it's not the head of school or the principal standing up and saying, we're all doing UDL, get on board. Sorry, I'm putting my hand up. It's a group of interested and engaged and excited educators saying, let's move this forward. So starting with that initial group, and yeah, and so that is our way that we're doing it right now. And with this initiative, so we don't burn people out and people don't go, oh my goodness, another initiative. We want to have that kind of that buy-in from a group who can help drive it. And we don't have to see changes tomorrow. It's something that we want over time for people to hopefully come to understand, but not feel like another thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. As I'm listening to you, I think because there, you know, especially on LinkedIn and international scene, like you can get hoodwinked into thinking that every school is fantastic and every school's got great leadership and every school's, doing amazing things and professional development always works and et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of wasted resources that go into the professional development space because there's not the impact. And I think a lot of teachers are not inspired, because it's done to them. But I'm realizing would be a very strong correlation to those teachers who have agency and have got choice in the professional development that they undertake and the impact that that has versus PD that's done to people and but it all falls flat. So I think agency is probably one of the main drivers if we're looking at converting ideas into practice.
I think so. I think it's important to survey teachers, have those conversations, and also that long-term investment in professional
Yeah.
development. It's not a one-off, so it's ongoing. And I've had like a number of like 3-year, 4-year, 5-year relationships with professional development providers where they're coming into the school, they're online in different forms, they're connecting with our teachers, sometimes students as well, other staff. That's really powerful stuff. And that's really how I believe, and in my experience, is how you really drive change. We worked with a couple of groups in China, and one was called Inspire Citizen. And the work that we did with students, teachers, and this was about global citizenship and about, the environment, looking at sustainable development. That work over time with those consultants was so powerful. With those, I don't want to call them consultants, with those individuals, those educators, would really help drive change because, it's part of something we do is service learning, but sometimes it's a tick box exercise in schools to, I'll do the service that I'm required to do. But if you make it part of what you do and who you are in the
Right.
school, and you work with all community people in parts, different aspects of the community, different people, that can be super powerful. And I've seen that, and I've worked with consultants over time, and in a few schools now that's been really, really helpful.
So here's a question for you. Let's say there's a professional development program that you're really passionate about that can be delivered by you or by someone else, or let's put you out of it. But like there's two different, not just providers or presenters, but two different programs, but it's the same content. It's great content. It's really important. One works really well in terms of it really impacts change, right? That there's a big take up from the people that are in that program, and obviously it's not a one-off. It's a big. So both, we can't compare a one-off day to a long-term thing because we know that long-term is going to work. But let's say it's the same length, the same kind of structure, roughly maybe. What makes one work in terms of impacting the participants in terms of change at the coalface versus the other one where it's like people walked away excited, maybe they wrote good things about it, but really nothing happened in terms of change?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there are a lot of layers to this
Sure.
question. And I think, you're starting with the power, the passion, the wisdom, the ability of the presenter to share and to be able to teach and facilitate the educators in the room. I think that's incredibly important. What I've noticed over the years, changing with professional learning is the longer relationships, that instead of just showing up cold to a school, having conversations, surveying people in advance, having a Zoom or online presence before you even arrive, and maybe with, again, a team of really keen, interested educators, and then having follow-up over time. So it's not the thing is, you've got to have cheerleaders, you've got to have people in the school who have the buy-in and who really want to drive it, and who have the T word, time, to drive it, which is always tricky, right? So I think that's the magic formula, is having really powerful people leading. It's connected and meaningful, and what the school needs right then. So it's evidence, you've collected evidence, it's evidence-based. We need this. It's coming from teachers, it's coming from different faculty members. And then it's powerful when it happens live or online. And then ideally it's ongoing. You've got that ongoing conversation with the consultant, the educator. That's really important, because, and if it isn't all of those things, if you haven't got someone there who's got you really excited, and you've got people who are like, yes, I want to move this forward in the school, it can fall flat. And if you haven't got that ongoing conversation, it can fall flat, and it can be a great day. And there's nothing wrong with having a great day. Who doesn't love a really wonderful lecture, and to get triggered, and really excited and thinking about things? That's great. But you will have feedback. Well, why did we do that? That was a waste of time. I could have been marking essays, or, so I think for that accountability factor, it's got to be connected.
It is possible, though, to have a dynamic session and a great day and a charismatic presenter and lots of engagement, in the room and etc. But for it still not to convert. I mean, I've sat on some days that were amazing, but I knew it had to go on the shelf because I couldn't. I'd need 10 hours to kind of work out how to implement that, and I would do it all on my own. There was no support. Do you agree? Like
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
are we talking about? I've been doing a deep dive into this whole area, and it's been a bit of a revelation, really. Are we talking about an implementation phase here? Like there's the training phase. Now that the two can be connected, but We've got the
Yeah.
training where you're learning information, new ideas, blah, blah, blah. And that might happen over serious times. But then there's got to be a focused implementation phase. And I think your champions, the leader champions who are driving it, isn't that part of the implementation phase?
Sure. And I would even say so the presentation that you talked about, I would say a pre-presentation, like getting people excited and having a preparation for that, and then presentation, and then ongoing implementation in the school could also be done. There's some powerful stuff done digitally as well. So, or a combination of those. So yeah, I think, yeah, that implementation is so important for people to feel their time has been valued, for people to feel that this wasn't just one great day, one great lecture, or 3 great days, days of lectures, or 3 great days of excitement. If it's ongoing and you've got people driving it in the school, and then in an ideal world, connecting with the presenter ongoing is I think that's really powerful.
Because the funny thing is that my brand is Learn, Implement, Share, and because I've run a lot of professional development, it's not my main focus now, but I've always known implementations are so key, and yet the penny only dropped over the last few weeks when I've been researching this, and people are talking about training phases and implementation phases. And what I like about that terminology is it puts it in people's faces. Oh, there's two things here. We need to do both things, because where training, professional development, whatever you want to call it, where it falls down is that there's the attention on the training phase, and there's really very little attention to an implementation phase. But having that terminology, we can then say, oh, all right, so we're not going to do an implementation phase. We're just going to do a training phase. Oh no, well, we expect people are going to implement, but no, but there has to be something in place. And I think I just like that term, implementation phase. I heard one expert suggest that there should be 4 times the resources thrown at an implementation phase as a training phase. That's Steve Carney, who co-wrote a book called Implement with Impact. And I heard him on a podcast, and that sounds a bit over the top to me, but like but at least there's got to be equal or probably more. But just let's talk, if we're going to talk training, if we're going to talk professional development, we've got to talk about, a pre-phase, a training phase, an implementation phase. And there can be a lot of crossover, but there's got to be an implementation phase. Otherwise, you're just throwing $30,000 down the drain. And hundreds of people, teachers' hours, and it's crazy. But that happens a lot more than I think you think, because you're kind of I'm not criticizing, but I think you're in a very delicious kind of professional development world with IB and the school and everything else. But it's not. There's a lot where it is really a lot of training phase and a lot of no thought to the implementation. It's just going to happen. And all the professional development I undertook, I gained stuff because I ran my own implementation phase. No, there was no requirement for me to implement anything from a training.
Yeah. I hope that's changing. I think that's changing.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I think more schools are, employing curriculum directors and teams that help to implement. But it's definitely, it's tricky, and it's and some are wins and some are less of wins. And I think we need to really, as you say, it's an expensive endeavor. It's an important endeavor. So, and it's also teacher time is the most important commodity here, right?
Yeah.
And if people feel their time has been wasted and we haven't done the proper follow through, then that's a real shame. So, yeah.
Putting you on the spot here, but as a school leader, do you look for ways in which you could streamline things and like take some of the pressure off teachers? Because okay, we don't need to spend 1,000 hours writing reports. We could use the software and it could save you a lot of time. And now with AI, and so we've just saved you, collectively 10,000 hours of work or 2,000 hours of work. So we're going to spend 500 hours more on PD and on helping you do what you do best, which is lesson planning and unit development and collaboration. But do you sort of think like that as a leader, or try
You
to?
do. You do. It's tricky and it's context specific as well. This is a small school, and when you're in a small school, everyone has to wear multiple hats, and
I
it's
know.
hard. You can't have those staff members who are able to lead and pull out. But we definitely have, pull out time for teams, where teams can have a day and they can go, and a couple times a year is the plan, where they can go and plan professionally, and they can work on what's important to them as a team, and they draw up the plan. I think that's really powerful. I think in the secondary especially, the report cards are really streamlined here. And there is kind of ongoing assessment through our portal, Manage Back. And so it's just on the report cards, they're just reporting on grades rather than writing those long comments, because feedback is constant throughout the year. So I think that is a really huge time saver. For teachers, it has to be quality, rich feedback throughout the year on all assessments, but students can see it, parents can see it, and then there isn't the need to double down and rewrite report card comments, because you've got that really year-long assessment. So I think that's a way to save teacher time. We don't have that in the elementary. The elementary are still writing very long report cards, but their meeting time now over weeks is dedicated in the elementary to report writing. So the expectation is that you take it home and spend hours. That meeting time is dedicated so you can write. So there are a lot of different workarounds we're using in the different divisions, and it's an ongoing process though. And time is always an issue in schools, I think, wherever you are. So being creative, also getting those ideas. Teachers sometimes come up with the best ideas for innovations, and we got to listen to their voices as well.
Teacher agency again.
Yeah, 100%. Over the years, I've had some teachers come to me and go, "Hey, did you think about this?" In my previous school, timetabling. I always work with someone who's way more talented than me at timetabling, and having those conversations about, oh, did you think of this? We can do this. That can be really, really helpful, because I don't know everything. I'm not the smartest person in the room. That is for sure.
Did you come across the Doug Braden interview I did? I think I talked to you about. He's a Queenslander and from Australia.
Oh, yes,
he did some very innovative stuff around the timetable.
Oh, nice.
Really, but common sense, but radically different to what other people were doing. And it freed everything up and allowed them to do this whole other program, because you have to listen to it. But anyway, hey, look, I think we'll wrap that up. Would you like to close on one extra thing? What makes PD work? What
makes PD work, or professional learning work, is really commitment of the leadership and the board to funding, commitment to the teachers and your faculty, your teaching community, to really want to grow and want to improve. And I have to say, in my career, almost every teacher I've ever met wants to grow and wants to improve and wants to do the best for the students. And the other thing is, the world is changing. We had a panic attack in the school, like a year and almost 2 years ago now, about AI. And suddenly the teachers felt, oh my God, I'm not equipped to teach in this environment where all my kids are on AI and I don't understand it. And teachers came to me and said, we need some PD. And we actually did a weekend workshop, brought an expert in from Thailand who was phenomenal, Benjamin Sheridan. And he did a 2-day workshop. We also opened it to people around Asia on AI. And it was at that point, this was October 2023, and teachers were just, oh man, what do I do? How do I stay on top of my game? And it was really helpful. The workshop was wonderful, and things are changing so quickly. And so we have to be on top of it. And we have to, and when teachers in my career, I think the AI, the introduction of AI, the widespread introduction, that was one of the things that was the most urgency around that issue. Teachers thinking, I need to know this. I need to understand this. And so, I think powerful PD or professional learning is also timely. It's considering
Yes.
the changes in our world, right?
Yeah.
Because the professional learning you were doing 10 years ago looks different. You've got to embrace technology. You've got to be on top of what's going on for students in the world and
Yeah.
what do they need to know, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really important as well.
Fantastic. Dawn, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. We'll sign off. So thanks so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.